This is Not Your Average Bucket List by Only in Your State, a podcast about exploring the hidden gems right in your own backyard. Hey everyone, welcome to Not Your Average Bucket List by Only in Your State. I'm your host, Marissa, and I'm here with our other host, Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Marissa. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
Great. Absolutely fantastic.
Is there any snow on the ground by you?
Oh, yeah. I just came in from letting the dog outside, and it is now snowing sideways, so I feel very cozy
Oh
inside.
no.
So,
You know that's
yeah,
a bad sign.
a little bit. Yeah, it's a little chilly out.
Is it sticking on the ground?
A little bit, but it's not as bad as what, say, New York, like the Buffalo area is getting right now, which
Right.
is like 4 feet of snow. So,
Yowza. Okay. What about, have you heard anything about the place we're talking about today, Wellfleet, Massachusetts, in terms of their weather?
I haven't. No. I mean, I assume that it's not nearly as bad as kind of like the snow belty region, but I mean, it is in Massachusetts, which gets a little bit chilly itself.
Right. Yes. I did see it was average high temp was in the 40s for Wellfleet in around this time in November. So that is a little bit alarming, but no snow.
I mean, to me, not so alarming, but yeah, definitely cold. Not so much, yeah, not a lot of snowfall. I'd have to assume that being such a coastal town that kind of prevents a lot of that. So, um,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Well, great segue into talking about this town. I don't know about you, but I really loved researching Wellfleet. Again, similar to a lot of our other small towns that we've covered, this one is right by water, which makes me
Mm-hmm.
very happy. Did you have any initial thoughts about Wellfleet? Did you have any maybe like stereotypical ideas of what a Massachusetts town would look like? How did this fall into that?
So I didn't have any idea before launching into it. I did not realize that it was in Cape Cod, like kind of in the middle, and it's double coasting, water on both
Hmm.
sides, which I love. That's great.
Yeah, that was really neat to find that out. I also didn't know that it was in Cape Cod. I think that's really really cool. Shout out to my mom
Hmm.
who is like dying to live in Cape Cod. So
Oh,
maybe this
really?
can convince her. Yeah, that's like her
Nice.
goal is to live in Cape Cod and just kind of chill by the ocean. So yeah, I'm gonna send her this and be like, "Mom, here's your chance. I gotta convince you."
Well, I will say that so Wellfleet has a population of like 3,500, but during the summer it swells to nearly like 6 times that to over 17,000. So it
Ooh,
gets popular. Yeah.
okay,
So
all right,
she might not want to live too close to the resort town if she wants to be, relaxed all year. Or just
right.
rent out the space during the summer, make bank.
That is true. Actually, excellent point. Yeah. I have to convince her though to leave Florida too, which, she lives in another beach town in Florida, but just completely different
Mm,
vibes. I feel like a Florida coastal town
yeah.
to a Massachusetts coastal town.
Yep, absolutely.
So, Wellfleet came with a lot of the same adjectives I feel like that we see when people are talking about small towns in the US. Historic,
Hmm.
charming, quaint,
Yes.
character. Did you find anything else that were like the typical adjectives? Which rightly so, because this place is adorable, and any sort of adjective that's used is definitely, I feel like, fits the bill. But did you find any other adjectives, nicknames, with the way people described it?
Well, it actually made me think of what we discussed last episode, which you referred to as Blue Mind, and it made me wonder, like, how many of our small towns that we've picked are actually on a river, on the coast, just near water and giving it that kind of calm, just really charming quality. Like, obviously, there are places like Lebanon that aren't on a major body of water, but that's what it made me think of, honestly. Just like this, like the charming coastal town and being adjacent to water, just giving it that extra oomph in terms of just like a cute town to visit.
Right. And similar to when we featured Hot Springs, North Carolina, because that was right on a river. It doesn't have to even be a coastal town, it doesn't have to be on the ocean. I think
Yeah.
it is interesting just drawing those parallels of, hey, this is our list of small town getaways, people that really love their towns and they love living there, and all they have are great things to say. And it just so happens that there's a body of water nearby. So maybe there is
Mhm.
some science behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to live near a body of water, whether it's a lake, river, um, ocean. I mean, obviously the ocean would be the best, but even Saugatuck, Michigan, on one of the Great Lakes is still amazing, or Lambertville on a river. So, yeah,
Right.
it'd be lovely.
Yeah, true. And with that coastal access, Wellfleet, Massachusetts has become the go to place for fishing, shelling, and oysters,
Hmm.
which
Yes.
is very cool. That's how people really, besides just the natural element, which we can get into, it is known as a fishing town. And the oysters there are one of the greatest delicacies in town. They have in Wellfleet over 200 acres of tidal estuaries in and around the area that are leased to local fishermen for the purpose of farming shellfish, which I think is super neat.
Hmm. Yeah, although it started as like a whaling and maybe fishing town, they have been focused more on shellfish. And I actually saw when researching, how interesting would it be to apply for like a shelling license before you, I don't know if that's what it's actually called, but to get a license to go get shellfish and maybe participate a little bit. I'm not sure if that's an option, but it would be very interesting to me.
Yes, well, that's actually interesting that you say, because in my research, seasonal visitors, you can actually buy a recreational shellfish permit that during the
Yes.
summer
Yeah.
months allows you to shellfish twice a week.
That is so cool. I would love to do that. I think it'd be just really neat.
Yeah, like what a cool experience just to kind of like go out there and, catch your own fish, bring in your own shellfish, and I mean, like live off of the land, I guess. Do people still say that? Is
Yeah.
that an outdated
I
term?
I think so, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I
cool.
mean, even if you were into, actual fishing, which honestly, I'm not much of a fisherman myself or a fisher person, angler, but I saw that you can get charter boats to actually take you out as well if you're interested in fishing, in addition to getting a shell fishing permit.
Very cool. Yeah, that would I would need some guidance. I feel like it's just kind of dipping my toes in that because I have no idea how to even start looking for shellfish. But
Right.
um, yeah,
Yep.
so annually, I read that Wellfleet harvests about 850,000 oysters.
That sounds like a lot. I have no frame
Right.
of reference. Sounds like a ton.
Yes. Yeah, so that's kind of what it's known for. Did you find anything else in your research of what Wellfleet is known for?
Well, I was digging into some of the history and I saw that, it was originally parts of it was known as Billingsgate. And then also it was part of the neighboring Eastham until like the mid 1760s or so. And I also saw that there's like a pirate shipwreck there. So the pirate Black
Ooh.
Sam Bellamy um, sank offshore, and there was 41 no 41 4.1 tons of gold and silver. Most of the ship crew died, but it was discovered in 1984. The first of only two confirmed pirate shipwrecks, I believe. So that's awesome. Like, oh, there were pirates, and they
Wow.
found treasure there.
That's
So
crazy. Do you know if all of the treasure was retrieved?
I have no idea, but it would be very interesting to see if there's any sort of charter boats or like pirate story boats that take off from the Cape Cod area.
Nice. That would be a really cool adventure, actually.
Hmm.
Interesting. Maybe we got to look into that for an
Right.
excursion. Um, One thing I did really love about researching this small town is that it has a lot of really fun, random tidbits of information. I don't
Hmm.
know if you found anything that was just kind of like off the beaten path stuff that maybe you kind of had to dive deep. Um, but one of them comes in the form of banana importing, which you probably didn't
Oh,
guess I was going to say that.
no,
But
absolutely not.
so, a gentleman by the name of Captain Lorenzo Dow Baker, he is the person responsible for mass scale banana importing into the country. and he was born and raised in Wellfleet, Massachusetts. And he
Okay.
basically made a fortune taking his boat to Venezuela. He would buy bananas for 25 cents a bunch, and then this was way back when, and then sell them for $3 here in the US in Wellfleet, which is the equivalent to about making a $60 profit per bunch of bananas in 2018. That's the inflation of.
Okay, hold on a second though. So you're telling me he sailed from Venezuela to sell these bunches and they didn't go brown by then? Like, I swear, what magic is that? How did he store
Right.
these
Excellent
bananas?
question. Right,
Oh
right.
my lord.
Yeah, how did these bananas make that trek? I have no idea. But that's the guy, that captain known around town as the banana guy.
The banana.
So
There's always money in the banana stand. So it's yeah. I feel like that is something I would not expect. Absolutely. That's crazy. Wow. All right.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, and another fun fact is that there is a bell tower clock in town at the First Congregational Church. It's known as the town clock, and it rings at odd times of day. So it's like you definitely can't base your watch on this clock. But it is the only bell clock in the world that still chimes on ship's time,
Oh,
which
I
is a
did see
huge part of
that.
what Wellfleet was. Yeah, isn't that so cool?
So what is ship's time?
Yeah, apparently it's not the time that we use anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, excellent question. I wonder if it has to do with ships coming in and out, fog rolling in and out. I'm not really sure.
Okay, so just a quick Google search, obviously doing this on the
Nice.
fly.
Love this.
Ship's bell time
Yeah,
originated in sailing ship days when the crew of a vessel was divided
cool.
into port and starboard watches, each on duty 4 hours, then off 4 hours. One stroke of the ship's bell indicates the first half hour of the watch. Then an additional bell is struck for each succeeding half hour. Wow, that is a lot. That is a lot of bell
Wow.
tones. Whew.
That's yeah. Imagine just like hearing these random chimes throughout the day and then just feeling really stressed out because you have no concept of what
Right.
actual time is.
Like, what is happening? Oh
Right.
gosh.
Yeah. So those are just some fun facts that I learned about Wellfleet, which
That is really cool.
yeah, did you have any I know you're big on hauntings and creepy stuff. Did you find anything about Wellfleet that
You
kind of
know,
falls into that?
I tried. It is a very historic town. I will say that the inn at Duck Creek had some alleged paranormal history. It's located on
Okay.
Main Street, and the inn was originally built in 1810 as a home for a sea captain and his family. And it's made up of four separate buildings. It's still standing to this day. You can stay there. And it has the oldest existing tavern in Wellfleet. However, you know, miscellaneous ghost stories, and I'm a skeptic, but I'm fascinated by ghost stories, so there wasn't anything
Right.
really to report. But if you are into that kind of history, check out the inn at Duck Creek. I will say though,
Yes.
probably the most fascinating thing that I would want to see, spoiler alert, is the now gone Billingsgate Island. So
Hmm.
the lighthouse in the island that used to cover, not the lighthouse covering 60 acres, but the area was 60 acres, and Billingsgate Island boasted 30 homes and a schoolhouse. The lighthouse was the second built in Cape Cod in 1822,
Hmm.
but because of, I think, harsh weather and changing tides, it no longer exists. The remains
Um,
can be seen during low tide, and it can be visited by boat, and you can actually explore it. So I think that would be just a really unique day trip to see, the remains of an island that used to be there.
that's really cool. So the
Hmm.
lighthouse isn't standing anymore either?
I don't think anything is, like, unless you go at low
Oh,
tide. I don't think you can see anything.
wow. How interesting. That would be cool if it had you can still kind of at low tide or you could scuba dive and see any
Yeah.
remnants underneath the water. That would be really neat.
Hmm. Yep.
In terms of geography, did you find out anything about Wellfleet that would give people an easy way to find it, or just like a general idea of where it is in Massachusetts?
So, similar to how you point to the mitten for Michigan, I saw that it is between the tip and the elbow of Cape Cod. So, if there's
Yeah.
an arm flexing, it's right in the middle.
Yes. Yeah, I did. Again, I didn't know it was part of Cape Cod, which I thought was really neat. Um, and I'm not really big in terms of Massachusetts geography or knowing much about it,
Hmm.
but Wellfleet sits about 14 miles south of Provincetown.
Hmm.
So, and you can get there by car, right? You don't need a ferry or a boat or a small charter plane.
Right. It actually has no rail or air service. So, your only option is really a car. You could probably get a ferry. But yeah, you have to pretty much drive into Wellfleet. And if you were going to Provincetown, you would drive through Wellfleet. So, I would imagine that a lot of people like to take a driving tour of, the town on Cape Cod and just go to the tip and then come back down through. But Wellfleet is
Yeah.
kind of in the middle of it all, so it's very nice.
Yeah. That is cool. Did you find that it came across as a walkable, bikeable town?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
the Cape Cod rail trail goes like north and south sort of through the town, and it goes like 26 miles, so you can go pretty far on it. But I would say if you're going like side to side between the coasts, you might want to get in a car because a bike ride might be an hour versus 20 minutes, but it's still
Right.
relatively bikeable. And I will say in the downtown area, I think that it is pretty walkable. What did you find?
Yeah, yeah, in the downtown area, definitely walkable. I think compared to a lot of other small towns that we featured, there seems to be a lot more natural space. So,
Yes.
in
Yep.
terms of just like estuaries, wildlife sanctuaries, national seashores, there are, I think, I want to say over like 10 different beaches to visit as part of the
Yeah.
area. So with things like that, I feel like all those natural elements, it's not going to be that walkable because there's just so much to see and because all those areas need to be spread out, to have their
Yes.
own thing kind of going on.
Yeah, so if you were going between, say, Macroney Beach, which is like on the eastern side, and then going to the White Cedar Swamp Trail, and then over to the Great Island Pathway, like it is far enough away to where you just probably want to hop in a car.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you want to see more or get the
Hmm.
most out of your experience.
Yep.
Um, so speaking of, we already covered that summer is the time to go if you like to be around people, or the time to not if you don't.
Right.
But did you find any other time of year that might entice people to visit?
So I was actually looking between April and June. So the average high in June is 72, but in April it's more like mid 50s. So I still think it's worth visiting in the spring.
Yeah,
And yes, before it gets super popular, but some of the like the restaurants and the shell fishing operations might be open because a lot of them do close for the season. So I would probably pick whenever things are starting to open up and then go then before the actual like rush of summer.
yeah, yeah. I guess that is a kind of, I guess, an exciting thing for people in summer to check out all these restaurants that are seasonal and shellfishing opportunities, but also a bummer for people if they visit outside of that time frame, because I do wonder how many of these restaurants are seasonal
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
what would stay open all year long. But I did find out in October is their annual Oyster Fest,
Ooh.
so that would be a reason to visit in the fall. So that's like
Yeah.
a whole weekend of oysters and 5K runs and good food, music, that sort of thing.
I do love visiting coastal towns in the fall just because, especially in the late fall, whenever you feel like no one else is really there, they're all very sleepy. I mean, obviously there's like the Oyster Fest, but yeah, I'd say late fall would be also a really neat time to swing by.
Yeah, because Wellfleet surprisingly has a lot of hiking trails, which I thought
Yes.
was really cool. So probably being able to hike or just walk the beach and not having a ton of people there would probably be
Mhm.
really fun. I don't know, maybe just cuz like I'm, mostly identify as an introvert, but having a beach to myself, especially on like a colder day where I can wear a sweater and just kind of walk,
Yes.
that to me is ideal.
Well, I mean, at least it adapts to your hoodie wearing. So if it's at least a little bit chilly, you're not
Right.
sweating. But
Right.
yeah, and I do think there's a lot of other things to do. So like the galleries, there's an actors theater, there's the drive-in. The only one left on Cape Cod is in Wellfleet, the drive-in theater. So I think there's a lot to do that doesn't necessarily require hot weather. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It does kind of seem like that type of place where a coastal town is like a versatile phrase. Doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily mean you have to spend all day on the beach, but there's really so much more to it.
Right.
So you mentioned some really cool things about Wellfleet, which is going to just segue us into a perfect day. I would love to hear about what your perfect day in Wellfleet, Massachusetts would consist of.
Okay. So I think that I've alluded to this before, but I'd probably visit in the spring, whenever things are beginning to like kick off for the season. And I'd love to stay at these little beach cottages that I found called Cooks by the Ocean. They're just like these sleepy little cottages and like the dunes, and they're private. So it'd be so immersive and away from people. And you could just like feel like you own like where you're staying. And so that day, I would start out by swinging by Wellfleet Harbor via bike. So I saw that I could take the Cape Cod Rail Trail down to the harbor, bike down, and maybe grab some items from Max on the Pier, which is a little shack and seafood market stand, and just kind of like wander around and see what there is to do, really explore the harbor. Then bike back to the cottages, pick up the car, and head over to the Great Island Trail, which is a 5 mile loop. And you can just like take in the peaceful sights. It looks really picturesque and just sort of what like you're going to be wandering through beach dunes by yourself. And it just looks beautiful. And
Cool.
then I was tempted to do the 26-mile Cape Cod Rail Trail in its entirety, but also I feel like there's so much to do that you have to kind of like pick and choose between the hikes that you'd want to take in a day.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think I would head over to the bookstore and restaurant for lunch. It looks really appetizing. Their seafood looks amazing, although I am sure the seafood at all of the places are amazing.
Yeah.
But I did really love the kind of quirky, laid back vibe. And then I would make sure to head out to Billingsgate Shoal around 12:30 when it's low tide in April, so that way I could explore the remnants of Billingsgate Island. So I'd probably want to charter a boat or, kind of figure out how to get out there. You can do some shellfishing. You can find like little like concrete placements of where things were and just kind of like explore. You can even picnic or, just hang out if you want. So I explore that, but make sure I head back to the mainland before, the tide comes for one. Uh,
Yeah.
but then I think I'd probably book a boat tour of the Cape on a sunset catamaran. So
Mm.
make sure to pick up a to-go order from the beachcomber, so like a lobster roll, fish tacos, something like handheld and easy. And it's like a
Nice.
BYOB experience. So just watch the sunset over at Cape Cod from the catamaran and then head back. I did really want to find time to go to another restaurant based solely on the name. It's the Seashore Kitchen and Bar, letter C Shore. So
Oh,
I
nice.
I love wordplay. So and it also looks amazing. But yeah, I think that would be my perfect day. How about you?
That sounds great. I love that you have a sunset catamaran in there. Also
Hmm.
exploring an underwater island. Yeah, that sounds really great. Yeah, for my perfect day, looks like we're staying at the same place because I too think Cooks by the Ocean is incredible. Uh,
Nice. Very cool.
Beachside cottages, you can't beat that. It's just like
Absolutely.
it looks like its own kind of small town, overlooking the Atlantic, that
Mhm.
it's sitting on top of an 80-foot dune, and there are 14 cottages of different
It was just
types
so
and
cute.
sizes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely I would start there. Um, I'm gonna mix it up this time. No coffee for me because there's no time. So we're going straight to the Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. This is
Mhm.
like a huge tourist draw for people in the best possible way because I think it said 5 or 6 hiking trails you have to choose from. There are boardwalk trails, tons of wildlife. It's like the best place to go to get a front row seat to the wildlife of the area. So I feel like that's like the perfect way to kick off the day. Um, and then also Great Island Trail is also on my list.
Okay.
It's a 5 mile loop. You can finish it under 2 hours. And then someone on All Trails said that they came across a humpback whale skull and jawbone still
Oh,
intact. Yeah,
dang. That's really
which
cool.
would be
Wow.
I know, like that would be wild to see. So that was on the Great Island Trail, and I also chose bookstore and restaurant.
Very
Not just
nice.
for the name, but I
It is
like
great though.
I know, yeah. I was like when I was really hoping that they have books, and they do. There's a place called Oceans of Books, and it's
Nice.
new and used books that you can buy, and it's part of this seasonal restaurant experience that has been open since the 1960s, which I feel is
Oh,
really cool.
wow. That's very cool.
Yeah, and so attached to that is called the Bomb Shelter Pub, and that
Ooh.
is not seasonal. It's open daily at 4 p.m. year round, and you kind of have to go down into a basement, and it's like a bomb shelter theme, but it's just like a pub and bar where you can grab some drinks and just hang with locals.
Oh my
So
goodness. I
that
can't believe I missed that. That
yeah.
is such up my alley. Oh my gosh. Yep.
Yeah, they
Convinced.
had a couple of really cool things inside too, like old school underwater diving helmet. You know those like metal helmets
Mm.
with the yeah. So it just looks like
Yeah.
a really neat place. And then I would end the night at Wellfleet Drive-In because I love a good drive-in movie, and it's so rare to find them nowadays. So yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. When's the last time you've been to a drive-in movie?
Oh gosh, it's been a really long time. I want to say I don't sometime in the last decade. There's one in
Wow.
South Florida. It's like similar to this one because this one is also part of a an open air flea market.
Yes.
That's kind of what we have in Florida too. It's in Fort Lauderdale called Swap Shop, and it's like part flea market, part drive-in theater.
Oh,
So
very cool.
it's huge. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I just so happen to live very close to one in Ohio, and throughout the
What?
pandemic, yeah, I actually started going again because I'm like, well, this is a safe way to enjoy movies, just in the back of a
Yeah.
car or yeah, like a back of a truck. So it was yeah, I did that a lot. And but before then, oh my gosh, I was probably like 5. So it was
Yeah.
quite a while.
Yeah. But still, like, what a great experience, I feel like, drive-ins, because
Oh
like,
gosh,
especially
yeah.
the one by you, does it have modern movies? Does it like do cult classics or just stick to like more modern?
Yeah, both actually. I saw like new
Cool.
blockbusters. I went to see like Nightmare on Elm Street and Lost Boys. So they do like releases just timing with the
Nice.
year. So it was yeah, it was really cool.
That's so cool. I'm very jealous. Yeah. Well, yeah. So that is Wellfleet, Massachusetts in a nutshell. Was there anything else that you found that you'd want people to know about Wellfleet?
Well, not that I found, and it's not about Wellfleet, but it actually reminded me of so I watched this show Midnight Mass, and it actually was filmed in Vancouver. So it's different area of the, North America. However,
Mm.
being in those cottages and being in a sleepy little coastal town reminded me so much of it. I felt like it would be a great time to go almost during Halloween. If you're a fan of spooky, creepy
Hmm.
things, I feel like it would be an awesome time to go. And also, hey, Oyster Fest. Two birds, one stone.
Yeah, no, I do watch Midnight Mass, and yes, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I love that we're making Gilmore Girls references and Midnight Mass, and just covering all of our bases across this podcast.
Right. If you're ready to take on this adventure with us, exploring the best small town getaways across the United States, make sure to like and subscribe on whatever listening platform you use.
Only in Your State is an award-winning travel publisher that uncovers hidden gems and local favorites across the U.S. We have a presence in all 50 states with a passionate following of fellow travelers looking to get out and explore. Head on over to onlyinyourstate.com to find the best attractions in your backyard and beyond.